Hi, welcome to Data Science Connect. My name is Ginger Baxter, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Graduate Career Advancement at Miami Herbert Business School, and that is at the University of Miami. Go Canes! Listen, I am joined today by some very special guests because we want to learn about the day in the life of a data scientist. It is so important that as you grow and you mature and you're figuring out your fit and finding where you belong, that you have some wonderful role models to follow. And so on the call, we have four incredible guests. We're going to let each guest introduce themselves a little bit. So, Tierra, if you could walk us through your background and tell us a little bit how you're currently using data science in your career.
Oh, sure thing. Greetings, everyone. My name is Tierra Dixon. I am from Mobile, Alabama. I graduated from Alabama State with a degree in chemistry, 2016. And I actually started at Shipt in 2020 in their customer service department. Prior to that, I was a seventh grade science teacher for about 3 years. So once I started at Shipt, I was, answering phone calls and all that good stuff. So then they actually introduced me to a pivot program where I was able to take a boot camp and learn data analytics. And from there, I've been a data scientist for Shipt since January. It's actually a really amazing experience for me. So I'm fresh on the technology track when it comes to this. I'm more of the chemicals and equation scientist person. So now I'm actually in the technology field with it. So on an everyday basis, just being able the critical mindset that is required of a data scientist is pretty much what I use, whether it's helping the company determine ways to retain members or think of creative ways to showcase our abilities as a company, from just my everyday life as an aunt and thinking of ways for my nephews to gain this type of knowledge in the future. So it's been a really amazing experience. Oh, you're still muted, Ginger. Oh, no.
It goes back and forth. I love that you've moved and transitioned from seventh grade teacher into data scientists, but
Mm-hmm.
have that connection and that love through your nieces and nephews to make sure that we are building the right mindset, because it's very hard moving into the future to know what skills we should be driving. And I love that you also introduced the word pivot, because I'm not sure many students K through 12 understand that a career is a lifetime of change, and that it's okay to pivot and redirect because you're building upon previous experiences. So, bravo. Listen, Morgan, there you are. We would love to hear your background and how you're using data science in your everyday life.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Miller. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. I currently work for the Kroger company. I originally was in a sourcing analytics role and focused on using data to negotiate with consumer goods companies to get the best cost for all the items you find in the grocery store. However, now I'm in an e-commerce strategy role. So I use data to figure out how to best sell products to our customers in our new e-commerce only warehouses that we're opening all across the country. And from an educational background perspective, I graduated from the University of Cincinnati in 2017 with a degree in business economics. And then a couple months ago, I got my master's degree in industrial and human factors engineering with a focus in data science and a focus in supply chain and logistics from Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio.
Wow, you just said like the magic word, supply chain. We've been hearing everything about supply chain and how data analytics, is infused in supply chain. Also, compliments to both you and Tierra. Tierra, I have a very deep connection to Alabama. I spent most of my summers down in Eufaula, so definitely deep connection there. Then, Morgan, I was really excited to see that Kroger was leading the way in this capacity. For about 11 years, believe it or not, I did a People in Progress program with Kroger, Centennial Farms Dairy, and they were committed to using the data to transform how they did business. So I've been excited to hear the updates and things moving forward. Listen, we have a couple more guests on the call for a day in the life of a data scientist. I know he's out there, and those of you that are into, and I thought it was adorable because on LinkedIn he had to say American football, which means from an international perspective, football might be soccer, but he is with the Texas A&M Aggies, and he's delivering all of their football analytics, which I know is going to lead to probably even bigger and better things on the field. Listen, are you out there, Kratik?
Yes,
Kratik.
ma'am.
Fantastic. And Kratik, your last name is Malholtra?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, take it away.
So I'm Kratik Malholtra. I'm originally from India. I studied engineering, like most Indians do, but I came to the US to study sports, and I specialized in sports analytics. And my focus throughout engineering and my master's was artificial intelligence that later on turned into computer vision. I'm the director of sports science and analytics for the Texas A&M football team. So all of our athletes, and I don't know how many of you all know this, but all of our athletes wear GPS monitors. So the GPS that you have on your phones, like similar GPS, but the units are probably half the size, length and breadth, and they wear it on the back in a sports bra because it's worn by guys. We call it sports bro. They have a heart rate monitor that comes right in front that measures their heart rate. Obviously, GPS measures their speed, acceleration, change of direction, the distance that they are covering, how fast they're going, all that stuff. We utilize that data to make sure that they are recovering, in the best possible manner. We peak them at the best possible manner. We push them when they need to be pushed. We pull them back when they need to pull back, so that our athletes are good during the season. Since the time we started using sports science, we've cut down on 89% soft tissue injuries and others. But that's the health monitoring, and that's the sports science aspect of my role. The analytics aspect of my role tends to deal with a lot of recruiting. Which players do we bring in? Who's going to fit the system the best? And for that, we use a lot of computer vision, and we compare them to our guys. And then opponent analysis, so breaking down opponents, their tendencies, but again using computer vision to make sure that we can design the best matchups. What speed is their defensive back running at, wide receiver running back, so that we can match them up against the best guys. One question that I see here is, what pulled you to pursue or to be a data scientist? I think it's just the love for sports, and to be there, to be in a decision making role so that you can make a huge impact. And I think the cool thing about this panel is that I think most of us are in that position wherein we love data so much and we love our field so much that it's driven us to be where we are here.
Absolutely. Kratik, something a student out there is asking, sorry, what was your job title again?
It's
Sounds like they're looking to work for you.
Yeah, it's the director of sports science and analytics. So I do all the sports science aspect, the player recovery, the player health, sports medicine, getting that data, analyzing the data, but also the sports analytics aspect, recruiting, scouting, opponent analysis, all of that bit.
Wow. Listen, I know that it's a big job that you're passionate about, and we are seeing some great results from all your hard efforts. I do think sports analytics is transcending boundaries, and people ever since Moneyball, those of you that enjoyed that movie, it may have been something that turned you on to telling data stories and looking for data-inspired decisions. Listen, we have another guest. His name is Tran. He's coming to us from Mobilewalla. So, Dat, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you're using data science?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ginger, for the introduction. I'm Tran, and I graduated from UT Dallas, University of Texas, Dallas, and in data science back then last years. And I start being an associate data scientist as in Mobilewalla ever since last September. And recently I got promoted to data scientist in Mobilewalla. And in our company, data is the backbone. Like basically, we do a lot of stuff with data. We pre-process it. We put it into our pipeline. We create model like many predictive model or you name it, like credit risk modeling, age and gender model, and such. And yeah, we're basically a data company, which is a very exciting because nowadays data science grows a lot, and as a result, our everyday works is like changing every day, and it's never been it's never something that you do repetitively or something that you do on the spot and such. And recently, what I've been working on is we are developing an open source project for data science, a very exciting one to have with the future engineering and to have with the scalability of the open source that we are having on the market right now. So, as you guys in data science know, like dealing with big data is a very problematic problem for us, data science. Like we have to deal with terabytes of data, and there's like very limited software that are in the market right now that give you the solution for that. So as in Mobilewalla, right now we are developing a open source project called Analyst. I will link it in the chat right now. And what Analyst do, it will use its engine by Apache Spark to help you with a lot of feature engineering process, and then like even recommend features to you and give you very basic stuff of how data work and what kind of data it is, like what is the mean, median, and all of that statistic stuff that you can use to create your models. So yeah, it's a very exciting stuff that is going on in my work right now, and I want to share with you guys that. And about the question that Kamjar asked, what is the thing that pursue that make me want to pursue data scientist? Is in this field, like everything is very new. As you already know, this field is only around for 10 years at most, and like the change in here are every day. So you're gonna do like a lot of different things, every day. And for me as a person, I really hate like trying to get into something that's old and you need to maintain stuff. I always want to research something more and something interesting to me. So yeah, this field is a perfect solution for my own problem.
Fantastic. Solving problems, finding solutions. That's what data scientists do. Listen, something that you did that I think all the K-12 educators, as well as the students out there, when you put it in the chat and you said, go to github.com, if you're not already familiar with GitHub, that is a place where typically employers, as well as people, citizen data scientists, they'll put code out there. Some of it will be public, some of it will be private. Some will have intellectual property guidelines on when and how you can use the code. But it's something you should be familiar with. It's something that you probably should get an account. You should probably start learning how to document your code, because when the code breaks, you want to be able to go backtrack and find, look at, she's smiling. I saw that smile. Tierra, I saw it. You want to be able to go backtrack and figure out where it went wrong, because one of the skills that's very important, and I think this is something that everybody on the panel can speak to, are like attributes that we have that make good data scientists. And resilience is one of them, because it's just change a little bit, iterate a little bit, figure it out, move forward. Okay, go back, move a little bit more, adjustments. So look, Morgan, you're out there, you're working at Kroger, you're trying to figure out the mix of, what they should have on the shelves to make sure they meet the demand of what the population wants. So how are you iterating and growing, and what attributes would you look for in a good data scientist?
So there's several kind of characteristics that come to mind. Obviously, we focus a lot on the technical proficiencies, but I think something that gets neglected a lot of what makes a good data scientist is the soft skills. Being able to be an excellent communicator, not only like written but verbally, is important because you're trying to explain the data in an easy way to a lot of people who are not data experts. But also, you have to be someone who's innately curious and is willing to ask questions and look at the problem from like 20 different angles, and being able to almost go against the status quo, because you can't just do what it has been done previously. You have to be willing to look outside that box and be creative. But also, I think too, data science does require a little bit of empathy, because you have to be sympathetic to the problem and the people trying to solve the problem and maybe pain points they have. So those are a few of the traits I think are really important as a data scientist.
Perfect. I started writing them down. So first one was curiosity. I think, yes, everybody here has a level of curiosity. You also talked about communication, and you said it was more than just written communication. It was verbal communication. You had to have empathy, possibly have the ability to read somebody's face and know what's going on, because they may not always feel comfortable telling you, I didn't quite understand what you said. So fantastic. So those are some great attributes and traits. Listen, Tierra, if you were to share, since background as a 7th grade teacher, what attributes, what traits would you be looking for in a good data scientist?
Honestly, Morgan hit them on the head. I have to steal all of those. But one thing I, of course, would like to add is being able to monetize your time. So, as data scientists, we're definitely wrapped up in solving the problem. But sometimes we would spend hours just engaged. And then it's midnight and you're like, oh, snap, where'd the day go? So definitely monetizing your time. When you do that, I feel we have less frustration when things don't go our way, because at the end of the day, we don't always have to solve. We just might need to find a better way to do it. So for the end goal, yes, we always want to solve a problem, but sometimes a better view of the situation is amazing. And then being able to ask for help. Teamwork is the dream. I have an amazing team at Shipt, and anytime I'm stuck, I have a question, or even if I just feel frustrated, I can call my manager. He's amazing. My coworkers, and we can just have time to chit chat. So sometimes you need that distraction. So those are my 2 pluses to what was already stated.
You are so on top of it, because you've got a fan in the chat. Mary is saying definitely working in teams. Time management is key.
Yes.
She also volunteered continuous learner. I do think lifelong learning is something that's necessary, because and I heard this once, you marry the mission and date the methodology, because the methodology is going to change, right? There's going to be a new platform. There's going to be a new software. There's going to be a new, code. But as long as you know what your end target is, what you're trying to achieve. So students, sometimes you're saying, why am I learning this? I won't ever use this. You're learning it because it structures your mind. It gives you a process and a pathway to ask the right questions so that you can get further along as you iterate. So yes, listen, Kratik, you're out there. And again, you are having some really great fans. So if you were looking for attributes, after you answer the question on how you knew that it was time to pivot from engineering to sports analytics, right? You could talk to them about your pivot and then tell them what attributes you might be looking for.
Well, so I've been working in sports since my 3rd year of engineering. Sports was my passion, is my passion. Hopefully, it will always be my passion. I was a 3-year national sports quizzer. I, just a lot. Like, presented papers in sports, and a lot of it. Worked as a journalist, worked as a marketer, worked as a sports engineer, if you want to call it, back in India. And then when I came to the US, moved over. But the thing is, I mean, the key is to because I knew I loved sports, but I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. So it was more about trying something. Okay, well, you don't like it. After 6 months, try something else. uh, you don't like it, move on. And then eventually you find that one thing, the one goal, especially like if you're 17, 18, 19, 20, basically below 25. Try like 100 things, because there's going to be that one thing that you love, and it sticks with you, and you think you have a dream job just like I do. So um in terms of what makes a good sports analyst or data scientist, i think I think a lot of it has to, for us, I mean, working in sports, a lot of it has to, what people forget is it's about the field that you're working in. I mean, and I don't mean data science, I mean sports. It's massive, because one thing that we have that's the most underrated is time commitment. Like, I go to work at 6 o'clock every morning, and I get done at 6, maybe 7 o'clock during the season, probably 10 o'clock at night. It's the time commitment that is crazy. And one of my bosses told me this in 2013 when I just started off. He's like, you got to be crazy to work in sports, and he's like, you make it because you are crazy. So um, but yeah, it's a time commitment. It's honestly a dedication. And I'm like Tierra was saying, like, you don't know when it's midnight. Like, you start off early, working, and like you're working, looking at stuff, looking at data, and suddenly it's midnight. That's what we go through. One more point that I'd like to add is, when I started working in sports analytics and sports science, there was no sports science as a field. There was no sports analytics as a field. 10 years down the line, I mean, there is. And I think for us, we didn't know what we were looking for. I got hired, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, but I don't really know what I'm looking at. So I think one thing I did was I reached out. The field was still growing in Australia and the UK, but I reached out to everybody in Europe and Australia and New Zealand. And I was like, all right, what do you guys do with this data? How do you correlate this to football? Just to come up with ideas. And then, speaking to coaches, seeing what are they looking for. Because you talk about market research. My market research was my coaches. And seeing what are they looking for, and then how can I develop that, and yeah, and that's where computer vision came in. And I went to Coach Imbo Fisher. This is about 4.5 years ago, and I was like, do you want speeds from film of opponents and recruits? And he's like, how would you do that? And I was like, Coach, I'll get it done. He's like, damn. And and when I showed him the first sample, he was blown away. And then since that day, we've used it for every kid that we've played against, every kid that we've recruited. And it's been such a key, because it's not only about signing. It's also about recruiting these high school kids, but getting on them early, identifying talent early. There's the eye that coaches will always trust, but it can only tell you so much. But then data basically backs what they think. So
Fantastic. Listen, the attributes that you're describing are, proactive, not reactive, right? You're trying to get out ahead of something. And I think that's where data and where people in the K-12 community can start really thinking of the world differently. How do we get out ahead of it? It's not always looking backwards. How can we start looking forwards with our data? And how can we, you hear the phrase, and I know even the students in high school are hearing this, that we're hearing data-driven decisions. That's not what we need to be saying. It's data-inspired decisions, right? Let the data inspire us, but it's still us making those decisions. So when you talk about artificial intelligence, Kratik, I think that's really cool, because you are getting that feedback from the wearables that you're using with the football players to help make data inspired decisions. So Congratulations. Listen, Dat, you're out there. Talk to us. What skills, what attributes, what personality traits are you seeing that would make a great data scientist?
Yeah, thank you, Ginger. Uh, about data scientists, as I already mentioned before, you are required, like almost required, to look for a new thing every day on your job. So I would say that the most important skill for data scientists to have is the ability to adapt and to learn everything maybe on the spot and trying to apply and research on whatever you are doing in there and trying to try to have some sense of like what you did with hard science in like K-12, like for example physics or chemistry, that you guys need to do a lot of testing and such, right? In also that also works like that in data science. Like you need to come out with new formula to do stuff, and then you need to test it, and then you can bring it to production. So yeah, it's a very important skill that a data scientist need to have. And another skill that I think that is very important is the ability to communicate, because us data science, we tell story through data, right? Like we try to analyze data and we try to find some kind of pattern inside the data. So the communication in here is to communicate with people how this analysis can change something, or how this analysis can improve some of the process that can bring us benefit to both company and to both the users as well. So communicate is a very key skill to make a good data scientist. And yeah, the last thing that I think is like the same kind important with the other two is the ability to always think beforehand before before you start in doing anything, because you need to plan out a lot of stuff, and you need to draw scenario inside your head before you actually go into stuff, so that it will be easier for you to approach any problem in both data science or in life as well. So yeah, that's my personal opinion on that.
Fantastic. Listen, Dat, what I heard from that was pre-planning. You have to pre-plan, think
Yeah.
through the scenarios. And why do we do that? Because it's going to take a lot of resources sometimes. It's
Yeah.
going to take a lot of relationships to get the data that you need. Students in K-12 think data is free. They think they can find it just about anywhere. And when reality, when you're in business, data is not free. Data privacy laws, there's lots of things that go into being able to find and connect with the data. So guys, I'm going to tell you some of my key attributes, because you may be wondering out there, you're like, why is the Assistant Dean of Graduate Career Advancement leading this panel session? Well, I have a background. And so I originally started my career as a classically trained economist coming out of the University of the South. And then I had a background in math, went on to a career, started out in technology with AT&T Bell South. From there, I started to fall in love with helping students learn and grow, build my own, network of folks to develop certain methodologies that I thought maybe might be very helpful. So for 25 years, I bought and sold two businesses and built two businesses from the bottom up, all dedicated to education. Then at the end of my career, right, to transition, to pivot, I went back to school and got a master's of mathematical risk management at Georgia State. I already had an MBA from Emory University, and I learned to code at a mature age. So I learned to become a citizen data scientist as well as a risk manager. So from all of that background and mixtures, I've been working with Data Science Connect for probably about 7 years. So just know that I love the intersection of data, technology, business, education, putting it all together, because it's going to transform the world. That's where we are. We're at that point where we are transforming the world for good through the data. So attributes. I already heard curious. That was one of my first ones. Definitely communication. Definitely we have to have empathy. Definitely you have to recognize your time management. You got to make sure that you're getting everything done and delivering on a timeline for the employer, but also for your own well-being and health. I heard teamwork, and I saw that in the chat. I heard the pre-planning and lifelong learning and adaptability, but something that I think is very important to tell folks, especially if you're in the high school and you're starting to move towards college, humility. Humility is a very important attribute in data science, because you think you're super smart and you may have developed this really cool algorithm, but other people are just as smart. They may have spent more time. They may have had a eureka moment to where that they can, explain something more succinctly, more easier to connect with than you can. So be humble, be hungry, be open-minded to receiving the feedback and the opportunities as they come. And I do, because I've worked with 14,000 students. And I saw a smile from a couple of you. It's, I love the confidence that comes as you build your skills, but at the same time, there's still more to learn. So please keep that humility in check. Always remain positive, and I think things will continue to grow. Listen, we've got about 10 more minutes, and we've had some questions in the chat. I do think I would love to turn it over to the panelists, something that I shared with all of my graduate business students. So guess what? Y'all are getting some insights right away. There's a technique called the Tierra technique for doing informational interviews. I recommend that everybody out there go and find a data scientist and sit down and have a coffee chat with them and ask them a couple of questions. The Tierra technique means you will be wearing the crown. You will be the king or queen of informational interviewing. And it stands for T. The first and easiest question you can ask somebody is trends. What trends are you seeing? Simple, easy question, and you'll be surprised at what input you get. The I stands for insights. You can simply say, what are you seeing, right? A, what advice do you have for me starting out as a data scientist? What advice do you have? R is a great one because it's resources. Oftentimes you may have the drive and the passion, but you don't know what resources are available to you. So a great question to ask somebody who's in the field is, what resources are you using? Where would you suggest that I go and find more podcasts? What are you listening to? And then the last one, which we've already heard about, is assignments. What are you currently working on? So Morgan, I want you to take on the crown. I want you to ask a question of Kratik. Could you ask something in the Tierra technique? Do you want to learn about a trend, an insight, some advice? What would you ask?
Yeah. So how do you see the role of analytics changing in the sports scene, especially college football has been changing rapidly the last year or two? You're on mute.
All right. In terms of change, I think it's going to grow, and I think it's going to grow because now I'm very blessed to work for a man like Jimbo Fisher, who is so innovative, who is so data driven, who is who wants to know every bit of information, and he's willing to trust the information, and he's willing to make decisions on the basis of that information. Somebody who's that innovative. But I think where the field is going is it's going to grow because you're going to have a lot of younger coaches who are coming up, who are big into data. A lot of the old school coaches may not be into data. They're old school. They trust their eye, and they're brilliant. They've won a lot of things. They should. But a lot of the younger coaches are looking at data and they're like, oh, what's his speed? What's this tendency? What do they do? When they're doing this particular thing. So I think it's growing with the newer coaches, and I mean, to be honest, like, it's probably the perfect time to get into sports analytics, If I know it's hard to get a full-time job right away in sports because I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad, but you have so many people who are willing to work for free. I'd say be that person, work for free, learn and grow, and then uh, you know get get your foothold in the field. And yeah, but I think it's the perfect time to enter the field. And I think one of the main reasons is because you have a lot of younger coaches who will become head coaches in probably 5 years time, who are so reliant on data.
Fantastic. Listen, we've got some questions in the chat, and then we'll give the crown over to Tierra. She's probably ready to ask a question of a fellow panelist. In the chat, they're asking, how do you introduce these types of careers to students 6 through 12? And I think, Tierra, you're the best person on the panel to answer that question. How would you introduce it?
Honestly, pique their interest. That is my number. If they're not interested, they won't care. So in the time frame that I taught middle school, it was Minecraft. That was their thing. So instead of just playing the game of Minecraft, the school I was at actually had a club that taught you how to build Minecraft and then play it. So actually, when I was teaching was when I was first introduced to the data science side, just a bit. So I thought that was really interesting. And honestly, even if they play sports, teach them the statistics of their sport. Because, as people, we only focus on the body, the build, and what you can bring as the athlete. But if you give them the scientific side of the sport that they're doing, they might appreciate it a lot more and then might pivot from actually playing, because injuries happen, people can get hurt, and then can still work in something they love and still benefit from it. So definitely using what they're interested in and showing them that scientific side to it, I think is gold in getting a child's attention, or a young adult, not just children, attention, and when it comes to data science. Oh,
Ginger, you're muted.
I know, I'm muted. I think, piquing their interest. Don't give them the whole story, give them the nugget, and then let them go and do a little bit of investigation, right? Because it's a journey, it's a mystery, it's a discovery. I think your advice about knowing the statistics of your own sport or your own, say you're into music. Believe it or not, you can build a recommender system that will take different attributes of music and say, oh, you're predicted to like this kind of music. You can do some machine learning. So I think there's some really cool things out there. I do think data visualization is also something that captures the 6 through 12 student very well. Listen, Tierra, do you have a question for one of your panelists?
Oh, let's see. It does not matter who answers, but I am new in the field. So I'm always curious as to the time frame. So some of you may have been working longer. Do you see this as a retirement thing? Because I've noticed some of the people I've been introduced to, they'll stay in one job position for about 2 years and they'll go to another position. It's still in the same field. But do y'all feel switching the jobs kind of keeps you abreast and young when learning the information? Or is it you've done your best, you've learned it, so now I want to improve and go somewhere else? Like, how does that work? Because I be wanting to retire, so I feel like I should stay forever, but you might not, maybe not in this field. Maybe you should keep looking at new things. But how do y'all feel about it?
I don't know. It's kind of interesting because I work at a company where there's people who easily work there for 20, 30, 40 years, but they might change roles every few years. And then there's some people who leave after a few years because they're like, okay, I have that Fortune 25 company on my resume. I can go and work in the same industry, but maybe do a different project or make more money. Or they're like, this isn't right for me. So I'm just going to go, I might go from food to finance or something like that. So it's really hard to say. I think it's just whatever kind of keeps you interested, because once you lose interest and you're not being challenged anymore, you need to either find a new focus area or you need to find a new company.
Anyone else want to chat on
I,
this topic?
I think in my field especially, I mean, um, I it's very important to keep growing. And when you talk about, a lot of our jobs are linked to the coaching staff and what coach you works for, because he determines your growth. If you have an innovative coach like Coach Fisher, who's willing to try new things, who says, all right, is that, what else can you do, and he's like, hey, can you do ABC? If I've done ABC, he's like, can you do DEF? um, it's really important about growth, because when you create what you can create, it's in the future you can pick and choose your jobs. But it's important to create. And if you're working for uh, coach who's not as innovative, then there is no growth, because he's never going to trust you. He's never going to believe in your data. You can come up with the best things in the world, but if it's not implemented, what's the point? So in sports, it's all about growth.
I think the comment that you made, if it's not implemented, that's where it's different than being a student and learning for the sake of learning. It's now using those skills in business, in your job, in your career. Um, I think I've met a lot of data scientists throughout the years, and what I find fascinating about them, and this is to your point, Tierra, they just want to grow. They want to continuously be learning, and they want to. Um, my experience has been, let's solve the problem, and now can we solve it more efficiently? Okay, have we gotten that efficiently? Can we go to the next level? So there's always, it's kind of like a video game, guys. It's like, here you are at the novice, then the apprentice, then the rookie, then the expert, and it's just always climbing, trying to build it faster, stronger. It's almost like the Olympics, right? And that's why I think we're seeing some great growth there. I also think there are new industries that are becoming mainstream. Data science being in sports would not have been talked about 15, 20 years ago, right? E-gaming, there's so much e-gaming going on, video games, so there's a lot of things that have changed that would not have been what we would normally have talked about even in, high school or college. But the world is definitely growing and changing. I think something I find also with the data scientists that I've encountered, there is a commitment to doing good. It's not just about making money. It's about doing good, being ethical, being a corporate citizen of the world and the environment. And so there's a lot of other things that are going into what's going on there. Listen, we've got about 4 minutes. If there are any questions, guys, put them in the chat right away, because we're going to have to wrap this up. Dat, do you want to ask a question of your fellow? Oh, wait, here's a good one. Let's start with Bornini's before we go any further. What's a good programming language to start with if you're a beginner? That is an excellent question. So anybody out there in our panel want to handle this one? What's a good programming language to start?
I can answer this.
Sure.
Yeah. So for me, I'm a data scientist working in the tech field in general. It's different from the rest of the panel. You guys are in all the other domain. So in my case, the best programming language for you to start with, if you only look into going into data science, is definitely going to be Python, because there's a lot of library out there to support data science in Python in general. And also, Python is a very easy to approach language. Like, it's almost like you are writing an English sentence when you're trying to use Python. But when you are familiar with Python, I would recommend to go into some more low-level language like C++ or something else, because it's important to have engineering knowledge on that as well, because you're gonna design a lot of system, like a lot of data pipeline and such. So need to have also a little bit of engineering skill when doing data science. And one more, you can also look into R. R is a very academic language for data science, which also support a lot of stuff. But in general, Python is still more popular in industrial libraries. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
I would agree with you, since, my role is connecting employers with students. The searchable skills that they're looking for is going to be Python. They do look for R. They are looking for data visualization skills, usually with ggplot and Tableau. It'll be up to the company in Power BI, what they've joined, what they've subscribed to as a company. So look, we are right here coming up on the hour. I want to thank all of the guests today for their time, their energy, their passion, sharing it with you. You probably have their names. You know a little bit about them. You can go on LinkedIn and probably find them. Definitely start following these passionate data scientists, because they're living the dream. They are doing this every day. And you just heard Dat got promoted this month. Congratulations, Dat. We didn't share that. We didn't clap for you, but I heard it. So congratulations. So remember, part of your journey is finding your fit. And the way you find your fit is to talk to a lot of people, to listen, to ask questions, to try things, to know what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and try and blend those all together. We heard that Python, C++, and R might be some skills, some languages that you want to investigate. We also learned that, sports is growing right now, and so there's more opportunity there. But look over at the grocery and supply chain, because that's going to sustain us and feed us. Don't forget about the tech employers, because the tech employers are doing some really cool things out there. And then Shipt. You got to get your products to places on time. So we definitely want to thank our folks from Shipt. Study, go to school. I'm still a huge fan of a college degree. Put that in your mindset, because once you get a degree, they can't take it back. So, of course, I would love for you all to bubble up and come to a graduate business program at Miami Herbert Business School, because then I would be able to help accelerate your careers. But do what you love, and be good at it. Try your hardest, and don't give up. Don't give up. At the first sign of trouble in data science, that's when we get even stronger. That's when we're going to figure it out. We're going to use that curiosity and that grit. That was the last attribute I wanted to leave you with, was grit, that resilience. You're going to need it as you grow in data science. So in one word, we're gonna wrap up with one word. One word, Tierra. Can you give us one word for your love and passion of data science?
Probably
Exploratory. Fantastic. Morgan, one word. Change. Exploratory. Dat, one word.
Learn.
Love?
Learn.
One word, Kratik. You're the last word.
Grow.
Exactly. Fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us today. We had almost 700 people on the call. Go out there, grow, learn, change the world. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Yeah.